Episode 68, Running Your Family Like a Business with Meg Thomas.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and certified through the Life Coach School. Together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with the coach? Here we go.
Who doesn't like bacon? Bacon is a favorite for many families, but when you have a large family, having bacon on a regular basis can get expensive. In Coach Meg Thomas's family, one of their biggest family debates was over bacon. The kids wanted more, but the parents knew daily bacon just wasn't in the budget. How did they compromise? By holding a family meeting where every person's concerns were voiced and then a plan was set in place where everyone gave and sacrificed for the good of the whole family. Coach Meg Thomas believes you have to run your family like a business. And when you address even a minor issue, like bacon, in a consistent format, you build a culture within your home that helps your family thrive and have great results. On today's episode, Meg has so many great tips and insights on how to take your family to the next level. If you want to create a family culture where you are all excelling together, you definitely want to give this interview a listen.
I am joined today by Coach Meg Thomas. I am so happy to have you here with me today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Meg, can you introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about you, maybe how you came into coaching, who you work with?
Absolutely.
All those things.
So I am a homeschool coach, and that has just been a ton of fun. I have 7 children, and I've been homeschooling them all. And my oldest 3 are now graduated. My oldest 2 are on missions. The next one is a nanny in Puerto Rico. Kids are in college, so the ones that are still home. And I'm only homeschooling really just my 2 youngest now. And the rest are doing their own thing. And so it opened up a lot of bandwidth of my time and just being able to now share things that I've gone through and experienced with homeschool and being able to do it with a life coach perspective versus throwing curriculum at people, but really helping them coach so that they can find peace within their homeschool. They can enjoy their children, and then the curriculum just flows and they can teach them anything. So it has been
Have you always homeschooled from day one with your kids?
No, my oldest did preschool and a year of private school of kindergarten.
Okay.
And but
other than that, it's been a long time. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I think we're finishing our 14th year now.
Wow. What I think is really unique about, one of the things that I think is unique is as you're working, I'm assuming you're working with moms mostly who are homeschooling. Yeah. As you're working with those moms and you're teaching them and you're helping them with their homeschooling, you're also teaching them life coaching skills that I'm sure just trickle into their homeschooling as well on some level.
Oh, yes, that's the basis. So my program is set up in like a tier, right? So that whole bottom level is coaching.
Okay.
You being okay with chaos, or you being okay with the speed or the level where your kids are going, or with yourself and having a lot of grace for yourself. I coach a lot on fear. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to mess up my kids. So all of that stuff has to be our base. Because if you are operating, you know this, just with different people you coach, when you operate out of fear, you're going to show up in a completely different way versus confident. And so if you have a brother-in-law who's like, this is ridiculous, I think homeschool's a joke. Now your homeschool is going to be about proving him wrong. And so it's like, I need my kids to look really smart or to wow my brother-in-law versus really helping them develop a love of learning. And just like, you can totally disagree with me because you may not like a charter school I put my kids in, or a public school, or a private school. Thank you for your opinion. Right. So that's the whole bottom base of my coaching.
Yeah. And as moms learn those skills, they in turn are teaching those skills to their children. That is, I think those life skills are just as important, if not more important. Don't repeat me for saying that, but, or shun me for saying that. But I think there's so much value in learning these coaching skills and teaching them to our children, because it is something that is missing in so much of the world.
Oh, it's so obvious now, like as my children are moving out, right? And they've grown up with a lot of these skills, and I've been coaching for a few years and all these types of things. And they on missions, they struggle. Somebody asks them a question or they're homesick, and being able to sit with the emotion, being able to choose how they want to feel about something, being in charge of their emotions with a companion that they may not be best friends with, right? And all those different things that pop up, like I have a tool, I can figure this out. I love that mentality of like, this can be hard right now, but I know I'm going to figure it out.
So good. I love it. Okay. So let's talk about your program. Because I think in talking about your program, there are so many things for us to learn too.
Yes. And I will focus on one that will be prevalent for anybody, that whether you homeschool or not, if just in your life. So I'll kind of tell you the overview, but if you have children or you're a human, these things will be very applicable for you, right? So that bottom base is all coaching, right? Okay. And having courage and moving past fear, or even being willing to feel afraid and move forward anyway, right? Like all those awesome coaching tools. And then the next step up in the pyramid is learning how to connect with your child. Because if you are fighting, can you imagine if your kid was in school and the teacher was always yelling at your kid, right? Or insulting your kid and just like, you're so dumb. Why can't you learn this? You would pull your kid out in a heartbeat, right? Like, you will not talk to my child this way. Now you're the teacher. And if you're doing that, you can imagine that your kid may not like school a whole lot. So a lot of times we work on that aspect, and that alone, just being a safe space for a kid to stumble over their words while learning to read, or like, I know 8 + 8 is 16, but I keep forgetting it. And just like, yeah, I forget things too. It's totally okay. And just having this relaxed atmosphere, open communication. I'm really big on teaching not to yell at your kids. And so that's that next piece. So the next one, and this is one that really a lot of people love that we can focus on today, and that is running your family like a business. And so I have some cute clients who actually are going to start homeschooling in the fall. And so they're getting ready. And they're like, my kids are going to be with me day in and day out, from sun up to sundown, and even in the night, we are all together. And so if your family is not running and functioning, that's going to be painfully obvious when you are all home together all day long.
Not just painfully obvious, but just painful.
Yeah.
I think you could leave the obvious out, but it sounds painful. Yes.
Yes. And just like messes and meals. And I mean, you have your regular home things that you like to do and stay on top of. And now you're adding this component of school. Mm-hmm. And so, and I'll come back to that one, but that final piece is homeschooling. Because when you have the other 3 pieces, homeschool just gets to be fun. It just gets to be exciting, and we try a book and we either love it or we don't love it, but it's not like it's the end of the world. And we can just kind of flow of like how much to push a kid and how much to pull back. Should I encourage them to not quit an instrument, or saying like, I think you can do this and push through hard things, because you have such a relationship with them. And I think you need a lot of the Holy Ghost really helping you to know, like, what do I do with this kid? But then homeschool, that piece just gets to be fun because everything else is functioning.
Sounds to me so valuable on so many different levels, right? I mean, I don't homeschool my kids. My kids are in a public school system, but I've experienced so many of those things, the frustrations, or even just having them home for the summer and then trying to readjust to having to be home all day long is such a different, it just takes a different mindset.
Yes. And a lot of times it's because a lot of times moms want to entertain their kids all the time. Right? Like they feel like they're putting on a show, and we can't be bored, but I also don't want you on TV all the time, or I don't want you just to check out. So like, I've got to entertain you. And you're going to burn out really, really fast. And so you can see why when school comes back in, that moms are like, please, I'd love my kids, but take them, because I don't have the bandwidth to keep doing this anymore. Yeah,
for sure. It would take some adjustment. There's no way that you could be mom, entertainer, teacher, all the things. It's not possible.
Yes. So that's why I really like focusing on that family piece and running my family like a business. And so if you think about what does a successful business do, they don't just show up, right? So like think of a big company like Apple. They're not just like, should we make a phone? I don't know. Maybe not. Somebody should do that. I don't know who. You know what I mean? Like everybody there serves a purpose.
Yes.
And then if you think about what is like at the top of the company, they're meeting together. They meet together and they review. So if their numbers were down, then you get curious. Why were our numbers down? We need to evaluate that. Or our numbers were really great. How do we keep that going moving forward? So if you take that same concept with your family and you start meeting regularly as a family, and we do it on Sundays because I have older kids and they have jobs and all those things. So Sunday's a day that I know I can get everybody. So whatever day you find works best for you, but just my kids know that that is family meeting. And we are going to review, and I call it comments and concerns. I have a cute little calendar. I should have hung it up behind me. A cute little calendar. So throughout the week, they can write their comments and concerns. And this is a lifesaver, especially if you have toddlers who want to come to you constantly, like, Mom, this person touched my stuff. And you're like, oh, wow, this is like, I want to honor you and listen to you, right? Because if you imagine if you're a boss and employee is like, this person bugs me, and you're like, I don't care, deal with it. Then you're like, oh, I don't really like this boss. But if I'm my boss, if I'm the boss and my kids are like, hey, so-and-so's touching my stuff. Like, oh, geez, that looks like it's frustrating to you, isn't it? Yes, it really is. It's bothering me. Like, is this something you can take care of? Or should we put it on family meeting so we can discuss it as a family on Sunday? And what's brilliant about that, as it progresses family meeting, little kids start realizing that a lot of their quote unquote problems are very manageable and that they can figure those things out.
Yeah. And build so much confidence in them, I think, too, as they start to realize that they can handle situations.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and it's just great too, to then on Sunday when we're meeting together, we're like going through the comments and concerns and saying, okay, so-and-so is touching my Legos and I built a really cool house and they broke it. And then saying, okay, what do you guys think we should do? So now in a family setting, when emotions are low and intelligence is high, we can then learn how to problem solve. So I don't come in and like save the day and we're just going to lock everything up and don't touch people's stuff. But I then turn it over to them and say, what do you guys think would be a good idea? How do you think we should solve this? I don't know, get rid of my brother. Like, that is an idea. That is a valid point. I've grown fond of him though. Like, what do we do? Right?
Yeah. I could see that being an often used idea. Let's just get rid of that child. Yeah. Just kidding.
We do laugh that our longest family meeting was over bacon. Of like the kids saying, you need to buy more bacon. And I'm saying, that's kind of pricey. Like when you have a family of 9, right? You're like going through a pound of bacon a day. No. Yeah. But it was great. They got to argue their point and everything. So
I now I need to know how the family discussion ended in this. Did it end in you buying more bacon, or what happened?
I guaranteed them bacon for Sundays. Like, I know you guys like bacon. And then sometimes the grocery store near me will do bacon ends that are much more inexpensive. And so if they are in stock, then I'm willing to buy so many packs a week, but not a pack a day. We are addicts for bacon.
I'm sure there are many people who can relate. I've resorted to just buying the pre-cooked stuff because I am not very great at getting it cooked. All right. Total sidetrack there. All right. So tell me more.
Okay. So then within our family meeting, right? So think about this too, with just meeting and not having a destination. And that's why I like to compare it to a company, a major business, who they may have a marketing goal of like, hey, let's make $1 million, or we want to have 100 new customers, or whatever goal they're trying to hit. Having that same idea with your family. What in 5 years do we want our family to look like? What in 10 years do we want our family to look like? And then an awesome exercise that people don't do because it's really fun to daydream. Like, oh, we'll be on the beaches of Hawaii and holding hands and skipping and big family meals. But then looking at what don't we want our family to look like in 5 years? And it's like, well, I don't want to avoid my siblings' calls. I don't want, like, if mom or dad are calling me, to being like, oh, here they go again. I don't want to be the person that is the reason that somebody else doesn't come to a family party. If you think of the straight and narrow path, right? Like it's creating my path because now I know what to avoid to stay on my path if I want my children to feel safe to come back home. If my children want to stay friends as siblings, they know they need to avoid calling each other names, destroying each other's stuff, right? Especially as most of them are teens now. Not talking bad about them. Like that's one way that would really destroy a relationship. Now I know what to avoid. Not just like, hey, I love you and you're a wonderful whatever, but also to avoid tearing them down. So I have a destination.
Such an important piece. I was just sitting here thinking, I do that in my business. What do I want things to look like next year and 5 years? But I really haven't spent time in the area of what don't I want it to look like? And yes, we don't like to focus all of our attention on those sorts of things, but you have to be aware of the possibility of things too, so that you can stay apprised to signs if that starts coming, or what you can do to make some shifts if you need to.
Yes. And I think it's so great to show kids too, especially as some of my kids get a cell phone and they text their friend like, hey, dummy, or, just something like that, where it's kind of derogatory, but it doesn't feel as mean because it's a text.
Mm-hmm.
And so just showing like, hey, you totally can, and you're welcome to, but do you know the path where that road will take you? Like if my husband walked in every day and was like, hey, stupid, do you have dinner? I'd be like, oh, this isn't going to fly. No, not only do I not have dinner,
and you won't have it tomorrow either.
Yeah. Right. But just showing them like, oh, here are the consequences of both my actions. So if I'm meeting and saying last week, we had some fighting last week. And is that the road we want to be on? Oh, it actually isn't. Okay, then let's talk about why were we fighting? What could we do to avoid that in the future? Well, I guess I could walk away. I'm trying to argue a lot. We have a 4-year-old. We have a surprise baby. And so a lot of people, the teens will try to use logic and argue with the 4-year-old. Right. And it's like, is that working? No, it really isn't. Okay, what could we do instead? And so that's a big piece of it, is that every person has a voice in family meeting. Every person gets to be heard. And no matter how ridiculous somebody thinks it is on their item that they wrote on their comments and concerns, we will talk about it. So I have 5 sons, 2 daughters, right? So bathroom hygiene has been a big issue that has come up multiple times about the toilet. Like the boys are so messy, the boys are so whatever. And that is not off topic. Like, yes, let's talk about it because obviously it's bugging you. Mm-hmm. So everything is open and it's this really safe space to then start creating momentum to create this full functioning, thriving family that has a family culture that knows what to do when mom and dad aren't there. And that's ultimately what I'm trying to do, is create a culture that my children have good values and morals, and they know what to do without mom and dad sitting over their shoulder like, hey, let's do this, let's stay on task, let's do all these things, but instead to instill it in them.
So I'm loving all these ideas, but I'm sitting here thinking, if I had come upon these tools a couple years ago and my kids had not grown up doing this, they would look at me if I tried to hold the conversation like this and just be like, you want us to what? I'm just curious. I'm certain that some of your clients have had that experience where their kids are older and they're implementing some of these things. Do you have any ideas or thoughts on that? Because I know for me, when I try things and it doesn't work, I just like give up. I'm like, well, never mind. It didn't work the first time. So it's never going to work again. And I know that wouldn't be helpful. And I know it's not helpful to do, but have you run into that at all?
Yes, because a lot of times it's like, if my husband was more on board, then I could do this. If one of my teens thought this was a cool idea, then we could do this. So I started, my oldest is 20 now, and we started this, I don't have the exact year, but maybe when he was around 11 or 12 that we started doing it. So he didn't, like his youth, those younger years, he was not grown up used to these types of things. Right. So we did start implementing this as my kids were starting to enter the teen years. But what I want to empower is that it only takes one person to get it going. Because I have a husband who travels, so he's not always here. And sometimes he's more distracted than the kids are during family meeting. And I only need me to be in charge of like, hey, we're going to do it. And then I get creative. Like, I'm going to make it happen. So maybe I'm going to make a really fun breakfast and like, awesome, everybody come sit down so we can do family meeting.
With bacon?
With bacon, with lots of bacon.
I know that I am guilty of, especially if my husband isn't on board with things and and I have worked through a lot of this and I don't react the same way, but it used to be frustrating for me if my husband didn't just buy into what my ideas are, because for sure my ideas are right. Like we should be doing this because it's right, because I have this idea. That just didn't work for me. Right. It just, I would just give up rather than trying. And I think that that is such an important thing to note, that we don't have to all be on board. We can note other people's opinions, but we can still move forward with our ideas.
Yes. And we'd be willing to be adaptable. And I think that's something my one of my kids teases that my husband and I are a very symbiotic relationship. And he's like, if dad were just in charge, it'd always be super fun, but nothing would get done. And if you were in charge, everything would get done, but like it would be very rigid. And so we have an awesome balance where I help it to be a little bit more structured. And then he can come in and like, wrap this up. This is taking too long. Like, okay, let's be done. Or Meg, why don't we mix this up and try it this way? Why can't we do it this way? And so it's really like, even myself, even though I love family meeting, that sometimes I need to be willing to be adaptable. And am I receptive enough to hear what my husband and children have to say?
I think that's so good. And I think as I look back, that's what shifted for me, is that because I always thought my way was the right way, I started to be more adaptable and open to, to his ideas a little bit more, rather than thinking that it had to be one particular way. Like the way my family does it doesn't need to be the way that your family does it. Like we can adapt things for our needs, and I can listen to other people's ideas and opinions as well. On how to do it.
So another fun component. So once you start getting in the habit of having family meeting, and if your family meeting is literally just like, hey, let's check in on everybody. Anybody have a win from last week? Anybody have anything we can pray for you this next week? That's another item I have on there, is what can we pray for you? Because that really opens hearts. Like, I don't really want to completely open up, but like, I've been really sad this last week. Can you keep me in my prayers? I'm auditioning for this. Will you keep me in your prayers? So just as if it's something simple, right? Of just family meeting, getting in the habits, and then you can just add a little bit more. And then we added calendar. And so as a family, we went through, and this was awesome, because many times kids are like, I want to be in this activity, and I want to be in this activity, and I want to go to this friend's house, and I want a job. And I go to, if you have kids go to school, right, then they go to school, or if mine are home, just for them to be able to see visually, how do we make that work? If kid A was like, from 1:30 to 3:30, I need to be here. And kid B is like, okay, from 2:30 to whatever, I need to be here, to let them see, like, how would you like to do that with mom not living in the car? Like, this is what I can do. I am willing to drive one activity a week, and that's all. And if you want more, how are you going to get there? So I love the calendar where everybody can see it, versus mom being like a chicken with their head cut off, trying to figure out how to make it work. But instead, allow everybody to see, how do we make this calendar work? How do we fit all the things that we want to do and the things that we would like to do in our lives, without putting it on one person?
Yeah. And I think that's such a valuable tool. I know that when I always keep notes on my phone or whatever, right, I know what the calendar is, but and I remember when my kids were little and nobody drove and I had to take them to all the different places, until I got it out on a physical piece of paper, it felt so overwhelming. I was always so afraid that I was going to miss something. But if I got it out off of my phone, which is still an important place for me to have it, but I have to physically write it down too, to make sure that everything's going to fit together, because there's something for me about visibly seeing it. And I can see how that would be such a great thing for just a family in general, everybody to be able to see all the different pieces.
Yes, it's been awesome. So if you're really ready to take it to the next level, this is my favorite component. And this is what I call levels of liberty. And we call it the successful 6, because I don't want my children just in homeschool to be able to read a book or do advanced math, or they could tell you diagram a sentence correctly, right? I want them to have skills so that when they move out of the house, first of all, they're confident enough to move out of my house, but then have the skills that when they move out of my house, that they are a full functioning, capable adult. So I break it down into 6 categories called the successful 6. So financial, emotional, mental, physical, social, and spiritual. So as I'm teaching and training my kids, I often refer to it like training a dog, just because like dogs that are well-behaved, you've put in a lot of time and effort to train them. right? So I do
Right.
the same idea with my children, that financially I give them line upon line, precept upon precept of different tools and skills and habits to develop so they can be successful financially later. Emotionally, doing the same thing so that eventually they can take 100% ownership of their emotions instead of, you made me so mad. This news article is infuriating me, right? Instead of like, I choose to be mad sometimes. I choose to be irritated, and I can own that versus putting it on other people who try to control others so that then they can feel good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not buffering and all that stuff. Then mentally, learning how to push past when something gets hard. And that's where we do a lot of with mentally putting your things in the calendar, mastering your school subjects. If they play an instrument, being able to clean up after themselves. I actually put all the skills of cleaning a house in mental. Just there are so many talks of making your bed and you get that dopamine hit, right? That I did something productive today. And then you can make your bed, and then you can make your room a more beautiful place. And then you can make an area of your home a more beautiful place. And it starts to just go out until you start making the community a better place. And just all of that starts in that mental part, right?
Yeah.
Then physically taking care of your health. Washing your own clothes. I've seen a cute reel that's been going around, like of these moms putting all the clothes in the baskets, and they're like, I don't do anything fun. I just wash clothes all day. And I thought, why? Why would you do that? Like, I wash mine and my husband's. I don't even wash my 4-year-old's clothes. One of my kids does. Right. And so I would rather teach them that skill, teach a man to fish, and he'll eat the rest of his life. Right. I'd rather
Yes.
you know how to wash your own clothes, do your own hygiene, cook for yourself, understand health and moving your body. Even like any type of exercise is great. Walking, yoga, or more intense things. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Socially, how can I make the world a better place? My relationships with other people. How do I interact with other humans? Lots of awesome skills that we learn in there. And then spiritually, how do I connect with God? What are the things I want my kids to know, to have a testimony, to be able to know to go to right sources when they do have questions. And so that is a huge part of our family meeting, is mentoring and guiding our kids line upon line, precept upon precept with the successful 6. And as I'm watching, as my kids have been moving out, to see how awesome that has been benefiting their lives, that they have these basic skills and habits and really solid foundations in those 6 areas.
Part of me feels overwhelmed.
That's why I said advanced.
Yes. But I'm certain that most of us are probably doing things in these areas, but just having them laid out, I think, is such a valuable way to think of it. Like really like being focused and naming them and recognizing it, I think is a really important thing. I remember feeling that way about like my young women's goals when we were doing way back when there was goals, and I look at these things and I'm like, these are things that I'm already doing. But when I could actually put a name to it and put a focus to it, it actually became more dedicated work to me, more, I don't know, more close to my heart. So I think it's valuable to recognize all those things and be intentional about it.
Yeah. So it's so fun. So we base it off of Doctrine and Covenants 82:10. I, the Lord, am bound when you do what I say, but when you do not what I say, you have no promise. So if my children would like the blessings and liberties and all these awesome things, they have to master skills. And then we work on those together, right? I don't just arbitrarily say like, you have to master this. I really work on them, especially in the teenage years of like, what do you want to become? Who is the person? Like, what do you want? What skills do you want financially? Here are some basic principles I want you to know, but then take it further. What do you want? And it was funny because my husband and I had said like $4,000 would be a really nice amount in your bank account as you're moving out. And one of my kids were like, 4,000, make it 10. I could do 10 easily. So like, I don't want to put a ceiling on them. Right. So just working with them, but then they do the things that they're working on. So for some of my kids, it's just tracking their finances. And what an awesome skill to really acquire that in your teenage years. So when you move out and your paychecks go from $200 to $2,000 or $20,000, that you already have awesome habits and skills of tracking, right? So tracking their skills, maybe their emotional thing is working on their outbursts. Maybe they have big outbursts of rage. And so they've really been working on just stepping into the emotion, and they know how to go feel it now without reacting and hurting other people. So as they do these skills, they have these liberties. And then I just love, because so many parents are like, when do I give my kid a phone? When can they have social media? When can they date? When can they go with friends without an adult? And everything is laid out. You master these skills, you get this. You master these skills, you get this. And just like within church, they ask certain things of us and we get blessings. When we want to go to the temple, we have questions. And if you do those things and believe those things, then you can have the privilege and the liberty of going to the temple. And if you don't do those things, nobody's yelling at you. Nobody gets mad at you. You just don't get the privilege of going to the temple. So it just takes the drama out of parenting. Can I stay up till midnight with friends? Like, oh, I can't wait for you to master the skills so you can. And now you have it completely laid out in front of you that you need to master X, Y, Z. And yeah, then you can totally do it because I know I can trust you because you've mastered these skills in our home.
Okay. So what are some of the other things I'm looking like the younger ones? Like, let's look at your 4-year-old. Like, what are some of the things that he is focusing on right now? What are some of the liberties he is wanting to have that is the result of the things that he is learning?
Yeah. So kids that are under 12 are probably need more instant gratification. That delayed gratification is a really tricky skill. And so I move that into the teenage years. So those little ones, sometimes it can be something as simple as, if you make your bed, then your toys can come down. Right. So my 4-year-old is working on learning how to pick up his room, and I do it with him or an older sibling, making his bed, brushing his teeth, or not fighting us to brush his teeth. That's kind of where we are right now. Clearing his dishes and getting dressed. And those are his skills. And then his next set of skills. So one of his things, and I don't know if it's nature or nurture, just because he is a little bit further away from everybody in age, but he'll just yell at people and he'll scream at people. And so he wants to start having friends over. And so I'm really working on the skill with him of being able to be mad without yelling or throwing something or punching somebody, so that then he can start having friends over, because I don't want to have your kid over and then have my kid punch him in the face. I want to keep your kid safe, right?
Yeah.
And so that's his next skill that we are working on, is what to do when he is angry. Like, even if he needs to go yell in another room, to practice and get it out of the habit of just yelling at his family members. So those are some of his.
When would you decide that, like, what is the measuring stick for that? How do you decide when he has mastered that skill?
Well, if you came and hung out at my house for a little bit, you would say he is definitely still working on that. So that one is a little bit trickier to measure than making your bed. But right now we are still having a daily meltdown, screaming at people. He lost something today, this morning even, right? And he was trying to break my car and like having a huge meltdown. So when we can get to the point where we can even just still be mad without breaking things or hurting people or screaming.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So good. And I can see how, as adults, there are many things that I could implement in my own life, right? I mean, we feel like we're a little bit better at delayed gratification, but I think we're really not that great at it.
Yeah. It probably just depends, right? Maybe we won't go buy everything. So I still do want to buy groceries. So we do have some probably better delayed gratification. So I love it. So levels of liberty, I've broken up into 3 categories, right? So for younger kids, it's more about that instant gratification. You brush your teeth, your toys come down, right? You eat all your dinner, you can have a snack in between meals, basic things like that, right? As they come into the teen years, it's more of the delayed gratification. So we're going to take about 60 days to really master skills. And then you can earn a phone. Then you can earn going with friends later at night. Then you can earn driving privileges, all those types of things, right? And then we get to our adult years. And it's not that we stop learning. So many people, I think, just like they've done school or they've had their kids and they're like, well, now I'll just support you. And I think, no, you are still growing and still valuable and have so much. And so we take those same successful 6. And in my group right now, we're doing this really fun habit challenge of who do I want to become financially? Who do I want to become emotionally, mentally, physically, socially, and spiritually? And what is one small thing I could be doing to now do line upon line, precept upon precept for me to become that person? So I'm trying to think. We just started this challenge in my group, and it's been so fun to see the different things that people are putting. So one of my emotional goals is to meditate 5 minutes a day, because I want to be a person who's more peaceful, more calm, right? If that's who I'm going to become, then wouldn't that be somebody who has a lot of balance and inner peace? So what's one thing that person does? They meditate, right? And it's just a deep form of prayer for me. Mentally, I really want to be very well read. I want to be somebody who is very well read and very familiar with books and always learning. So to become that, I'm going to be reading 3 pages of nonfiction a day, so that I'm always reading, always growing, and not just, and because fun books are so fun, right? Like a really good, just interesting novel. But I also want nonfiction where I'm expanding my mind, challenging what I believe and what I think and all those things, and learning and growing. So it's so fun. And just socially, you don't have to go and do a big service project or something. So my thing that I'm doing socially is because the person I want to become is somebody who's just really thinks about other people. Right. It's so easy for me to stay so happy in my little bubble with my husband and my children. Like, I love where I live. I love my house, my little yard, and my chickens. Like, I'm so good to just stay in my bubble, but I want to really be somebody who thinks about others. And so something I can do simple is send a nice text every day. And I have loved that because it seems so simple, but right, by small and simple things are great things brought to pass. It has helped me to just really think about, like, who's going through something right now. Oh, this person just had surgery. So not only was it a nice text, but like, I'm also going to bring dinner now because they said that would be helpful. So just these little texts of like, hey, rooting you on, cheering you on. I love you. I hope you have a great day. Just letting you know I'm thinking of you. So just taking those same 6 items and now giving small steps for me as a mom to really help me to become who it is I have the potential to become. And just doing it one little bite at a time.
And I love that it's bite-sized. I love that you said reading 3 pages a day, because that seems very manageable, right? Like, I can, 3 pages is totally doable, but yet, like you said, by small things, great things are brought to pass. And I know I said that wrong, but
it's okay. I think I did too.
3 pages a day, you're eventually going to finish that book, right? But
right.
if you don't read any pages a day, you're never going to be well read. You're never going to finish.
Right. And how often, like, when you get into a book, do you read way more than 3?
Yeah.
But if you're like, but if I only have to do 3, I can do it. And a lot of times that momentum will keep you going.
Yeah. And that's the same with so many things in our lives that we want to do. If you just set the bar low, it seems like you can actually do it. And then it ends up being more. So,
but what I love about it too, is that example for my kids.
Yeah.
Of this is like, not only am I asking this of you, so it's not do what I say, but do as I do. And I'm going to actually show you how. And so even in family meeting, when we're talking about these things, my husband and I are very open as well. Like, hey, I got really angry last week, and this is why. This is the story I had, that the house should have been cleaned when I got home, and I was super irritated. And like, being able to talk through our emotions and letting our kids see us, and that we're real and authentic, and like, hey, I'm killing it physically. I just ran this mile the other day. It was so awesome. Or like, honestly, I could eat better. And just being so vulnerable and authentic with them, and allow themselves to be vulnerable and authentic and to be themselves, and watch, how do I become the best version of myself?
Yeah. And what a safe place it's creating for everybody to be them and to share who they are. Love it. Meg, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I feel like I have a lot of food for thought, and a lot of, I wish that I had done something like that before. I mean, I have 2 of my 4 still home, but yeah, I think it's such great ideas. Thank you.
Yeah.
So tell people where they can find more of you and get more information.
Yes. So my website is coachmegthomas.com. And on there will be a link to videos of Levels of Liberty. So you can kind of see like a big hour-long YouTube video about it. I have a calendar on there for family meeting, all those fun things. On social media, I'm the hippie mama. Somebody asked me why hippie mama. And I was like, I don't know. I gave birth at home and let my kids watch. They're like, oh, okay. Say no more.
Yeah. Oh, how fun.
Right. So yes.
Well, good. Thank you. We will link to all those things in the show notes. People can find them easily there, but I appreciate it so much. And thank you for sharing your light with us today.
Yes, thank you. And I forgot I have a support group for No Yelling Mamas.
Ooh.
And so that's just a free support group. And every November, we do No Yell November. So trying to give little skills and tools throughout the year and to become the person who no longer desires to yell.
So good. And I know you also have a podcast.
Oh, I do. Thank you. It is Called to Homeschool. So many women, they laugh, they Googled, I feel called to homeschool. Now what? And so then we come up. So it's a ton of fun.
Oh, that's so good. And what a fantastic resource for so many people who I know that it's a challenge that they want to homeschool and it feels overwhelming.
Yeah.
And yeah, what a great resource. So thank you
so we do
much.
bite-sized little bit to ease you into homeschooling, but a lot of the focus is more on family dynamics and that relationship. And then school can just flow versus fighting an uphill battle.
Well, it's all intertwined, right?
Yes.
I mean, you need it all. So
yeah.
Well, thank you. And I'm excited to try some of these things in my own home. I appreciate all the ideas.
You betcha.
Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.